Hello and welcome. My name is Maria Patsalos. I'm a partner at Mishcon de Reya. We are supporting this incredible panel this afternoon, The Power of Mentoring. I am a sports immigration lawyer, so I specialize in immigration, and I'm also in the sports group, so I do everything that comes in relation to sports immigration, such as helping footballers getting their work permits, helping footballers renounce citizenship if they want to play in different countries, also helping sports people in relation to becoming British and then play for England a couple of days later. So lots of exciting things like that. And we at Mishcon are really proud and happy to be supporting women in football generally. I think we mentioned this morning in some of the panels about how sometimes it's easier for corporates to be a little bit better in the female space than it is for the football world, and that's certainly the case at Mishcon's. For the last 3 years, we've been in the top 30 family-friendly employees list. We also have a really huge increase in fathers taking shared parental leave, all big steps in relation to this area. But of course, like with every company, we have further steps that need to be taken. We've been working with WIF for many years now, over 5 years. We provide them with free legal advice, both for WIF as well as their members, so in relation to discrimination. And this is hot off the press. We haven't announced our pledge yet, but I'm going to do it right now, so you're very lucky. We pledge to hashtag #GetOnSide by becoming an official Women in Football partner and providing WIF and its members with pro bono legal advice. There we go. Thank you. So, on to the panel. As I said, very exciting panel, very important topic. I myself have been very lucky to benefit from having an incredible mentor at my firm. I've been there for 17 years and she really kind of pulled me up. And now I do the same for others. I mentor various junior women at Mishcon's and outside of Mishcon's. I think it's important that we all give back and we help each other. And I'm sure this is what's going to be discussed today. So let me introduce you to your panel host, Fran. Fran Boorman is the founder of Goal 17 Limited, a company best known for delivering corporate and charity mentoring programs in partnership with Premier League football clubs. Goal 17 has been featured in Forbes and on the BBC News. Fran was awarded a fellowship to Oxford Brookes University for her mentoring work and has been running mentoring programs for WIF and FIFPro. She's currently developing groundbreaking new technology that will enable millions of people to create effective mentoring relationships using AI and machine learning to enhance individual users' experiences. Sounds very good to me, though I don't understand it really. But at the end of the session, Fran will let you all know about a new WIF mentoring program that you can all get involved with. So, over to Fran.
Thank you so much. Well, hi everyone. How's everyone feeling? Good. Now, just so you know, because I know women in football are not competitive at all, but we were just chatting to the panel down there and they said they were going to have more fun than us. So what we thought is we'd just show them in some way. So after 3, can we all make a lot of noise? Ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much. And now we'll get on with the real business. Really great to be here with you all today. And I just want to pose a question to all because I sat there this morning and was absolutely wowed by all these amazing women. And then, you know, when they get to that point where they say, now, has anyone got a question? Does anyone else suddenly think, their mind goes blank, or they think, I've got a question, but I'm really just a little bit too scared to ask it? Does anyone ever feel that? Yeah, and one of the amazing things when you're trying to grow your career is often we have questions, but it's quite hard to have that person that you can ask to. And that's one of the many reasons why I am the biggest fan of mentoring. Because having a good mentor, you can ask that question, the one that's been in the back of your mind. And what we want to do this afternoon is explore this amazing concept of mentoring. Because I think we all know what mentoring is, right? But then do we do it well? Do we have good mentoring? So we really
yeah, they did exactly the same thing.
We'll show them at the end.
That's true.
Definitely girls. So we're going to explore that topic, and I've got 3 absolutely incredible women here that are going to share their experience. And actually, I want to kind of put the spotlight on these girls. So we're going to kick straight off, and I'm going to come first of all to Nicole because
No, that was just for me, I think.
Exactly. We're going to come to Nicole first. Nicole is an incredible woman. She is not only the director of Worcester City, Worcester City Women's Football Club, but she's also the co-owner, which I find fascinating, because I think, isn't it wonderful? I always think if we want to progress more women, if we can have women at the top, it really helps. And Nicole also came through one of the Women in Football mentoring programs that we run before. So Nicole, what I'd like to ask you first is, could you, first tell us a little bit of the story of how did you become a co-owner of a football club?
Well, yeah, it was a bit of a dream come true, definitely. I think we've heard a lot today about, you know, girls growing up dreaming of playing football. And whilst I did play football, I kind of felt like that wasn't a possibility. There were no role models or professionalisation at that point. But I knew I did actually always want to own a football club. Like, I absolutely loved football, but I loved the business and the sort of commercial side of it as well. So for me, I've worked in the industry for the last sort of 10 to 15 years in various different industries, different roles, from sort of commercial sponsorship to then working at the English Football League, then actually had the opportunity of working at Tottenham Hotspur for the women's team as the general manager. So that was a great experience, going from sort of semi-professional to then professional status. And actually it was during my time at Tottenham that I met somebody who was a sort of sponsor with the club. Built a really good connection with him. He's actually based over in Florida, but we always talked about wanting to own our own club and do things properly. When COVID hit, actually, it was a bit of a catalyst for me to sort of say, what is it that I really want to do? Let's sort of really think. I've been on this wheel, just working and, you know, trying to progress in the industry as much as I could. So we were just talking earlier about saying yes to everything, and, you know, that was a topic on one of the panels this morning. I felt like I'd done that. COVID almost gave me a bit of a chance to think, actually, let's stop for a minute. What do I want to do? Had a conversation with my business partner about, I really want to support a women's football club right at the very bottom, to help grow that to the top and do it properly and create a professional football club and do that being led by a woman. So it's been about a year now. We actually announced my sort of takeover on International Women's Day 2021. So we've just had a year, and it is very much about building the foundations. But for me, it was, you know, it's also a passion project. I'm from Worcester originally. When I played football, there were no opportunities to really play at a high level. It was very much participation level. And being honest, not much has changed in the last sort of 20 years from that. So something needs to change, and we want Worcester City Women to be the catalyst and the delivery partner that does change that.
Amazing. I mean, I love that on International Women's Day, doing a takeover. I think that was the best one. Now, I know, I think often when we meet successful people, that there's often this image that they've just kind of got there by themselves and they've fought and do it. But actually, did you have mentors and people that have helped you do what you have?
I think I did, but without kind of it being an official mentor. So whilst I had a great support network and people that, you know, were my bosses, I suppose, as I started in the industry, definitely helped me. Certainly when I look back now, I can see that they did pave the way. Some were not so helpful, definitely, but I still took opportunities to learn from those and, you know, kind of learn what not to do or what would I do differently when I'm in that position. But I definitely did, but not in an official way of having a mentor where I could call up somebody or, you know, I could think, this is a really difficult challenge or situation. How could I go and who could I speak to about that? It kind of just happened, but there have been moments where I've struggled. But actually, since having my mentor through this program, that's made things a lot easier.
So just to kind of enlighten everyone else, back in 2020, we launched a mentoring program, a test mentoring program with women in football, and you were one of the first participants.
Yeah.
So tell us what that did for you and how it worked.
Yeah, so I think the catalyst for me deciding to actually sign up to that was taking over at Worcester and realising that I sort of was trying to nurture a lot of other people. I was trying to lead a group of staff, from coaches, but also to players and others. But I kind of thought to myself, actually, where's my support network? Where do I go when I need some help and some relevant expertise as well? And then when I saw the mentoring program that WIF were advertising, I just knew that was like right time, right place, really, that I needed that support. So it was a bit of a no-brainer for me to sign up. But when I did sign up, I didn't have a particular person in mind. I didn't really know what to expect from it. But what kind of then happened from the programme My mentor's Paul Barber, who we've obviously heard and spoken about earlier on today. He's absolutely fantastic, but I didn't go thinking I want Paul Barber. It was very much a sort of self-reflection and being quite aware of where maybe my gaps were, and thinking then who do I know in the industry, or what type of people, even if I don't know them, would be really good to help with my journey.
So, because it was quite an interesting process, wasn't it? Because we approached it from the mentee saying, who do I need?
Yeah.
Or what skills do I need? And then going out and finding the right person.
Yeah.
So what kind of things has Paul helped you with as a mentor?
Real kind of just relevant experience. So, you know, I will tell him a situation that maybe is difficult or challenging, and he will use his experience and stories about, well, actually, you know, there was a time when, and it's not always actually during the time that he was in football, it's been other experience as well. So there's been some real tangible stuff that I've been able to use and put into practice with then the work that I'm doing at Worcester at the moment. So yeah, it's been extremely helpful. And Paul not only has then given his experience, he's also opened up his network to allow me to engage and connect. And he's great at saying, I don't know everything at all, but I know somebody that does. And that's been great. So I've got a great network of people at Brighton who have been extremely open and willing to support and share thoughts and advice as well.
That's brilliant, Nicole. And that's one of the things that's unique about mentoring is this opening of resources. So whether that's contacts or access to information, that's why it's so powerful. Thank you so much, Nicole. I'm sure we're going to come back to you, but I'd like to now just jump to Michelle. Now, Michelle, when I first heard about you, I was like, wow, what a woman. You have been featured on the BBC, Channel 4, Guardian, you've written books, and you're going to tell us hopefully a little bit about your new book, and you're a leadership coach and an author. Tell us a little bit about, I know you've been on both sides of mentoring, you've been a mentor and a mentee, so I'd love to maybe hear a bit about your experience of being a mentor.
Yeah, good afternoon everybody. I have to own up, that was my doing as the panellist was walking past. I was like, there's too many people going down there. And they were like, okay, Michelle, it won't be as good. I said, it's not going to be as fun as ours. So that's what the walking was my fault. But it's great to be here. I am a leadership coach, I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm a consultant. But I worked in Premiership football over 30 years ago, and my first job was really setting up community sports programmes in the local community and doing a lot of community development work, and that's based on my teaching background as well. And so I'm a natural kind of rescuer in the work that I do, and I recognise that in myself. I went on to become a local authority manager, and then I've worked for myself for quite some time, and I work across industry and sport and business. And a lot of the work that I do is about trying to create networks of power, basically, because as a woman of colour, from a marginalised identity, I recognise that the privileges that I have only go so far, and that means that I have to really find ways to navigate the system. And I do that for myself, and then I do that for others, because for me, my family is full of inspirational women. My family is full of women that are head teachers, social workers, and people that give back. And so it's always been a part of my journey to be a part of giving back, and I've had people support me on my journey. And we know when we experience a ceiling within a context of our professional settings, and we just can't seem to find a way above that ceiling. And so therefore we have to look inwards often, but we have to look outwards as well. We have to look at those people that can support us on our journey, and we have to find that shared history with those people. And that's the work that I try to do in the world, in creating those kind of little ecosystems where people are able to see each other more clearly. They're able to articulate their strengths in a different way. They're able to showcase who they really are. And then for somebody to see that, to really see that. We need to be in environments that value us, that see us and that hear us. And we have to do that with people that do that first and foremost. And often in my journey, I haven't had somebody to look to kind of give me that guidance support. And so I've had to find it from my friendship circles, from my family, and then eventually I've been able to find it within a professional setting by being who I am in the world, by just showing up authentically, talking about my journey, talking about the big mistakes that I've made in my life and in my professional career and owning them and taking responsibility for them has created a space which has drawn opportunities to me. And I've been very fortunate where I've had sponsors come along and open up their networks for me and do something that's really important. They talk about you when you're not in the room. And that's what I talk to my coachees and mentees about a lot, about this voice, about having a voice of influence and having visibility, because visibility is no good. It's no good being in the media if you've got no influence, right? There's no point in having any visibility if you actually don't use it in terms of that influence for others and for yourself in that moment. And so one of the things that I really like to do is to talk to people about how they're supporting others, how they're advocating for other people when they're not in that space, how they're calling out somebody's really good work, how I know Ali's work over there as a coach makes a massive difference at a grassroots level. Jada's work over there at the Premier League creates opportunities for people that would never have thought about that. And it's about how we showcase each other to lift everybody up. So for me, the mentoring, the title of mentoring is actually so broad because it, as you were saying really brilliantly, it's about how we can create networks and open up opportunities. But also, when you're in front of somebody, sometimes you can see their potential in a way that they can't. So I know that people have kind of sponsored me, and I'm like, wow, they really believe in me. Oh my God, that's a serious professional. And if he thinks that about me, if she thinks that about me, there must be something to it. So I've kind of lent on their confidence and lent into that at times in my career that has really made a difference for me. And so that's a little bit about mentoring, coaching, sponsorship, all wrapped up into one.
I love that, Michelle. And one thing you said again was about that shift of power. And I remember once I actually met one of the judges on The Apprentice, and we do some mentoring together. And he said to me, mentoring is what is mentoring? He was like, it's a shift of power. And I thought it was such a great definition of it, actually being able to, as you say, when you open up your network to someone, you are giving them a power that is very difficult and intangible for them to get hold of.
But it's also reciprocal, right? So I have a lot of mentees, a lot of coaches, and I learn so much from them. Yes. This is a two-way gig. It's not, it's not just one way. So that shifting of power, yes, but as much as anything else, when I'm in rooms with some of my younger mentees, I'm learning from them.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you, Chan. We might touch back on that, but before we've got so much to talk to. So we've got Preeti Shetty here, who we've already heard about as being one of the new non-exec directors at Brentford Football Club. But also, let's not forget, you're also the leader of Upshot, which is an amazing organisation. Can you tell us a little bit about, again, your role, but also how mentoring has slotted into that for yourself?
So my role, I'm a new CEO of Upshot, which has been really interesting. I ran Upshot, which was a sport tech social enterprise. I ran it at the Football Foundation for 8 years, and last year took it out of the Football Foundation and set ourselves up as a social enterprise. So effectively, I'm doing the same thing I've done for 8 years, but now we're doing it on our own. And first time CEO, the realization, and it's funny because the realization that 8 years later you have no idea what you're doing. And it's strange, it's the same team, it's the same, everything is the same except it's not. And that's when you realize that you need a support system. And I didn't, you go through, for me it's phases, right? The mentoring, or whatever you want to call it. Like, I don't necessarily think, as Nicole said, it needs to be as formal as that. But it's your support system that you go to when you need something. And that won't always be the same people. For me, there have been different points in my career where I've needed something different. And so I then found the right person for that conversation. And it's a bit like you were saying, Paul Barber is the right person for this conversation, but he might not be for something else. And so for me, those people have changed. And the last year has been hard for everybody. Hard for me to sort of come to terms with the fact that I can't do this on my own. And so I need to go find these people, but it wasn't necessarily the same people I would have gone to 2 years ago. Now and I have to say the sector has been incredible about meeting me there, because I've needed now CEOs to say, what am I doing? I hope you know. And most of them have gone, we don't know either, but it's fine. And that's wonderful. I think the honesty that has come genuinely, mine was also on International Women's Day. You know, when I took Upshot out, the number of LinkedIn messages in my inbox from people I didn't know, you know, I sort of knew off, from CEOs saying, I see it's your first time, here are all the things I did wrong, or here are the mistakes you're gonna make, or I made, or just if you want a coffee, if it gets a bit much, call me. That's mentoring, right? And some of them I've taken them up on, and some of them I haven't because I haven't had time. But it's not about that. It's the fact that the offer was there. And I think that's the big thing. A lot of people feel like it's a commitment. I'm going to sign up to get a mentor. I'm going to sign up to a scheme. I've done both. I've done official ones where I've been assigned a mentor. I've had bosses that became mentors. But I think for me, the most powerful one is the ones that you find in rooms like this, as peer mentors, right? Like the first time I met Michelle, we were in Berlin and we went for lunch, and she listened to me and she told me about her life experience, and she gave me some advice, and she gave me the confidence to continue pushing. She basically mentored me, but we didn't call it that, and it wasn't like a thank you very much, a good session. But you know, and she's somebody I've stayed in touch with because I feel safe that if I want to, I can pick up the phone and ask her for her advice or tell her about my particular challenge. And I think we've all said it. Michelle sometimes might say, I have no idea, but I know someone who does. And that's what this is about, I think.
So there's a couple of really interesting points there, because I think from all of you have said is that a lot of people have this image of mentoring in their head that, you know, a mentor is for life, not just for Christmas, and that it's this long drawn out relationship. But sometimes it's really organic, and it's that. I love what you said, Preeti, was how it's for a specific task. And I know we talked about this, Nicole, when we did the program. I go, you want a mentor now, but is it that's for now? What else do you need a mentor? Finding those gap analysis. Is there a way that you found to approach that, to kind of go, this is what I need now? How do you work out what you need from a mentor?
Yeah, and it is. I think it is different people at different times with different skill sets, but it really does come from self-reflection, right? You have to take the time to say, what is it that I need, and what, because otherwise, I think you're making life very difficult for the other person. And you know, it's the same as whether you're looking at coaching or therapy or any of these things. It's take the time to look within. And sometimes it's a skills thing. I don't have the skills in this area. Great, let's find somebody who does, right? And so for me, I built a board, and it's a very skills-based board. I'm really bad at finance. Let's get somebody who's good at it. I don't know anything about legal. Let's go talk to some lawyers. But then there's the personal stuff or the behavioral stuff. And I think Michelle touched upon it a little bit with the fact that I'm a woman of color and there's not that many of us out there. Nobody in a similar situation. I work in sport and tech. I'm not seeing any of the things I need to see. And so I'll give you a very specific example. When I was negotiating with the Football Foundation to buy Upshot, something I had never done before, and I was also on both sides of the legal conversation because I was running Upshot. So I had lawyers and the Football Foundation had lawyers, and both people were saying, well, ask Preeti, she knows. And they would refer to me as the buyer, which is very weird that you guys do that. I was very much out of my depth. I had no idea what I was doing, but equally, it was a sensitive situation. I didn't feel like I wanted to go to somebody in the sector because it affected, you know, it was confidential and affected. And so really randomly, I found, there's a weird Berlin connection here, but I found like a women's leadership program, and they were all German. It was, I messaged the woman and I said, I see this thing, can I join? And she was like, I'm not really, like, this is for like young German girls starting in their career. What are we gonna give you? And I was like, I don't know, but I need something. And we talked and I did it. It was a 7-week program. And it was incredible to talk to people that did not know me, that did not know anything about my life. And I was really honest and I said, I'm really scared and I don't know what I'm doing. And I think that, you know, I knew within myself that is what I needed in that moment in time. And so I actively found a way to get what I needed, right? But yeah, I mean, I think it starts with self-reflection.
So that's really interesting from a mentee's point. Michelle, I want to kind of ping over to you now, because as someone, again, that's been in that mentoring role, I think a lot of people sometimes think, well, I couldn't be a mentor, I don't know enough. how do you deal with your own maybe limiting beliefs around being a mentor?
Well, I think, you know, just going off of the point that Preeti was making there, we can all identify with, you know, if we're lacking a bit of motivation or if we need some industry expertise on something. And then this idea that actually everyone else has got, excuse me, the answers. Well, actually, some of the answers are within us, but we just haven't untapped it. And we can sometimes kind of overthink it, I think. Sorry to kind of just cut across some of the things we've just been saying. But I just remember being really inspired by John Amici many years ago. And I just felt like John was just talking my talk at one point. And, you know, I've moved on slightly. But I just read all of John's books. I found him on the internet. I listened to all of his podcasts. And he was just kind of like a mentor in my head. And then I would find myself saying some of the things that John would say, but in Michelle Moore style. And then, you know, I just kind of reached out, just really loosely on social media. And then we developed a relationship, a relationship in the sense of a mentoring relationship. And, you know, I ended up kind of, you know, going to lunch with John a good few times. And then that was it for like a period of time. And then I just realised when I was talking to John, that this isn't stuff that I don't know. Like, John is just affirming and reaffirming stuff that I already know. And I just think that one of the things that we do is we kind of just listen to those inner voices that somehow or other somebody else has got all of the answers to all of our problems. And actually, sometimes we just need to give ourselves the luxury of talking it through over a lunch with somebody. And there's a connection with someone. You have an instant chemistry usually with people, and some people you don't, and it's whether or not your energies align. And you know that they might get something out of you and you might get something out of them, right? And so you just give it that time to actually let it flourish. And so somebody that like does a lot of mentoring, people are like, you must have loads of time to mentor people. And I'm like, I don't. I just literally find people that I connect with, and then I think, well, these are the things that are happening in my life. That actually might be great for somebody else. And then all of a sudden, you know, I'm running a Guardian masterclass in a few weeks' time. I get some complimentary tickets. I know that a young woman that I met last week at another talk, she would love to come on that masterclass. I'll give that to her. She might meet somebody there who's got loads of time to give her that mentoring relationship. So there's all sorts of different ways. The way in which I mentor is by role modelling. You know, I'll use the influence that I have where I might get invited to an event or an awards thing, and I'll bring a couple of mentees with me. I'll do some of my own networking at that event, and they'll be watching me do that. I'll be talking about them before they arrive in the room, and some of them are a bit introverted. So when they get in there, strangers come up to them and start talking to them, and they think networking is then really easy. You know, so there are just different ways in which you can do it. That doesn't have to be, you know, really onerous. If you think, I don't have time to be a mentor. Being a mentor, being somebody who wants to support somebody else, is literally working for the collective, because we are all connected. All of our success, every single one person's success in this room is interconnected to somebody else's. It absolutely is. I know this for a fact. And I'm somebody that has made so many mistakes in my career that I just have this thirst to be able to tell everybody about them so that they can shortcut their way to some success. And so that's why, you know, for me, mentoring, being a mentor isn't as difficult as what you might think it is, because we have all got evidence of getting through tough times. And, you know, that's in itself such great, you know, capital to share with somebody else, because we have all got a different way of expressing our experiences, which may connect with somebody. So I think that we all have the capacity to be brilliant mentors, and people that I mentored 20, 25 years ago come back into my life and open up doors for me in all kinds of ways. And so it really is that reciprocal way of seeing our success connected to each and every one of us.
And we can hear from you, Michelle, obviously how much you get, and it's that people with reverse mentoring, but I think all mentoring is reverse mentoring, that you get as much as you give. So it's a privilege to give because you receive so much back. But one thing you mentioned there, which I think feels really relevant, all of it's relevant, but this always hits a chord with me, is that belief in ourselves. And actually, Nicole, it'd be quite interesting to hear this from your perspective, having gone into now, you know, into this sort of lofty position of being an owner of a club, that we often have those niggles of self-doubt. How have you found that kind of being in those mentoring relationships has helped you deal with maybe any of those self-doubts that you might have?
Yeah, well, I mean, just kind of, I guess, jumping on what Michelle was saying there, I always think of success as a team sport. You cannot get there if you don't have other people to actually help you with that. And I've definitely used Paul and others, you know, just support network, as we've said, not necessarily an official mentor, to kind of just check myself and be like, I've done this, is that okay? And you have to have people that you trust to have them give you honestly, you know, yes or no, or maybe think about it differently. And you know, there have definitely been those moments where you have self-doubt. I think we all can say we've done that. But it's having also the probably sort of confidence to challenge yourself as well, and that comes down to kind of self-reflection as well. And definitely as I've got older, I've been more okay with being like self-reflection and, okay, I can't do everything, I'm not going to be good at everything, and that is absolutely fine, and that is okay. And I definitely try and get that message across to other people as well, to be more open to ask for help and, you know, not apologise for it as well. It's not easy, but I think as you get older and more experienced, you open up to that more.
Yeah, there definitely seems to be something about when you are you've got more experience, you feel more confident about going, actually, I'm a little bit not great at this. Whereas I think when you're new, you can it's harder almost to kind of shine the light on yourself.
And it comes back to what the panel was saying earlier on this morning about saying yes to everything. It's that confidence as well to say no, and sometimes no is quite powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely something in my career that I've always tried to make sure I put myself in a position where I don't need to be. I'm going to be there because I'm the right person to be there, and having the confidence to go, if I'm not the right person to be there, then I'd rather not be there.
No, I think this is such an important point, and we were talking about this earlier, right? It's the reason we say yes is because we don't want to miss an opportunity. What if this is the opportunity that will get me to my dream job? What if this is the opportunity that... And then when we're there, we're so grateful to be there. I made it. I'm so grateful that we're not, going back to what the panel was saying earlier, we're not being our authentic selves, because you don't then want to ruin your amazing opportunity that you said yes to, even though you have no time for it and it's unpaid and, you know, all of those other things. But that's where we get into these situations. Whereas, and I always talk about this with Brentford. I said this to somebody earlier. One of the best things for me of joining the board of Brentford is I wasn't the only woman and I wasn't the only person of color. And that immediately tells me something. It tells me that they already had a Monique and they already had a Nitty, so I wasn't the token woman or brown person, and it took the pressure off from worrying about, but what if I say this or what if I say that, because I had allies and it's going back to collective. We were then advocating for the collective rather than just for the individual. And I think that, you know, that's such a turning point where we value ourselves enough to say, well, if I can't be who I want to be, then I don't want to be there at all. And you can't do that at every point in your career. Like, you can't do that at the beginning. But the sooner you learn to do it, the better it will be for your mental health.
And that, again, linking that into, you know, that collective, having that mentor that puts you forward for that. But says, actually, you know, I have several non-exec director roles, and there've always been things that a mentor's put me forward and said, like, you need to get Fran on this board. So again, that's that access to resources and so on. So for everyone listening, I always think it's really fascinating to kind of have something we can put into action. So if you, say, sitting in the audience here, you're thinking, I want to go find myself a mentor, or I want to be a mentor, what advice would you give ladies as a kind of next step to actually going and getting a mentor and actually making the most of that? Nicole, should we come to you first?
Yeah, I mean, one of the first things I would say is give yourself some time, and that luxury of time to do the self-reflection or speak to someone that you trust, because when you actually verbalise a lot of your thoughts, it does become a bit clearer in what you need and what you might be missing, or that might be the first step. And then I would definitely say, don't have any fear of going connecting with people, even if you don't know them, or think, you know, strategically as well about who, if you don't know them, who might know them, and how could you get an introduction to those people.
Brilliant, thank you, Nicole. Preeti, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree about the reflection. Don't go get a mentor for the sake of getting a mentor. That's not valuable to either party, right? So, know what you want and know what you want to get out of this. But equally, in some sense, being a mentor might help you understand what you need, right? And so for me, I went on loads of like proper mentoring course type things, and I was like, yeah, good, I got stuff out of it. And then I probably forgot stuff and then went on another one. But when I started mentoring somebody else, I suddenly saw myself so much more clearly and my gaps. And then I was like, right, this is what I need. And, and sometimes like that's a good first step, because at the end of the day, and Michelle, what she said was perfect. You don't need something special to be a mentor. You just need to listen. Like your own personal lived experience is unique, and you don't know what somebody else is going to get out of it. And that could be an interesting first step.
I love that thing about seeing yourself. I always find whenever I mentor, you end up telling somebody something, giving them some advice of something they should do, and then you go, God, I used to do that. Why did I stop doing it? And it reminds you to go back and do it.
And it's a risk though. The only thing I'd say with this, and because I've found myself doing it, the risk is you try and create somebody in your mirror image. And I found myself saying things that I'm like, wait, that's not what that person needs. That's what I need. And the risk is, the aim for me of mentoring is not to make many yous. It's to make that person the best version of themselves. And you need to think very hard about whether you have the energy and you're willing to invest in somebody else enough to do that, rather than this is what I should have done, so you go do it.
Yeah, really good point there. Michelle, how about your advice?
Yeah, I mean, my first response was there's something about kind of like maybe taking away the title of mentoring and thinking about your own journey in terms of your personal growth. And we all need other people to support us on that, wherever we are in our careers. And we need different types of people. They may be the cheerleader, they may be the person that really anchors you and roots you and grounds you. And it might be that you have different friends in your kind of circle that kind of play a particular role and you don't even realise that. So it's maybe about thinking about who's already around me, who I can actually lean on or work with, or who can support me at this point in time. And sometimes also it's about a skills exchange. So I know that I did a talk a couple of weeks ago to this great group called the BComs group, which is about black and brown young people within media and sport. And one of them just reached out to me over LinkedIn and kept reaching out. And I was like, oh, this guy's quite persistent, good, but really positively. It turns out he's a young photographer. I need some photos. I always need shots because, the publisher and this person, that person, like, we need shots, Michelle. I'm like, fine. So he's now going to take loads of photos of me, and I'm going to give him a few kind of mentoring sessions in exchange. And it's not like a long, drawn out relationship or anything. It's just for the time being. So sometimes it can be that just a really transactional bit of exchange, but there's so much more going on within the relationship in terms of just sharing experiences. And also, we can have that. I have like a board of advisors in my head of people that are helping me on my journey, and they don't even know that they're my advisor or mentor, right? They have no idea, but I call them up, I say, can we go to lunch, or are you at that event? Oh, I'm going to be at that event as well. Let's catch up over coffee. And then all of a sudden I can have a different audience and somebody else, I knew that was going to happen, who can actually support me on my journey. So sometimes it doesn't have to be, this is going to be a whole heap more work. It just has to be thinking slightly differently and having some more intentionality around how you're going to get some of that expertise into your life and support for you in that moment. So I think, we don't have to overthink it, Fran. I think we can just keep it as simplistic as possible at times, because we've all got busy lives, right?
Amazing. Thank you, Michelle. Now, I did want to open it up to questions, if anyone, but actually, whilst we're here, I believe we've got quite a few of the ladies that were involved in the last Women in Football mentoring programme. If there are any here, can you stand up and give us a wave, or have they all gone? Hey, we've got, okay, oh, it's over there, amazing. Great to see these ladies.
No.
Oh, more, okay, two girls, do you want to stand up and just give everyone a wave so they can see who you are? Here we go, give these ladies a round of applause. grab them. I'm going to throw you girls in here. Go grab them at the end to talk about their mentoring experience as well, because they've gone through specifically a football industry mentoring programme. So thank you so much, ladies, for being here. Now, do we have any questions? Anyone want to ask any particular questions of these ladies? I see we've got a microphone at the ready. Is it because at the beginning I said, you know that point where they ask questions and everyone's mind goes blank?
I'm just going to use this moment to
Yes, Michelle.
to tell you about my book that I'm very proud of, right? This book is called Real Wins, Race, Leadership and How to Redefine Success. The book is a culmination of all of my hard work during lockdown. All of my work dried up during that time. I was approached to write a book. I was like, me, write a book from South London? No, never. I wrote a book about my experiences in life, about my former experiences as a failed athlete. I didn't make it to the international standards I wanted to, about my journey in the world as a black woman, being enriched and being complicated in leadership positions, and the work that I do with leaders to help them become more conscious anti-racist leaders. And then also the work that I do with my coachees and mentees to help them to embrace all of their potential. So there's something in this for everybody. There's a load of people that think the same, Denise Lewis, Tanni Gray-Thompson, all the rest of it, all the great and the good I interviewed for my book as well, and it's told through storytelling and practical ways in which you can find your inner change maker as well. Please buy the book, go on Audible, find it, share it, and showcase it with your networks, please. That's what my publisher asked me to do. I'm also doing it.
And also, just to add to that, there are like huge billboards of Michelle and the book all over the country. So if you see one, take a photo and tag her in it, because it's been amazing to see.
And it's thank you so much, because there's a real visibility piece that goes with this as a woman of colour, and working in the publishing industry is tough. And so I managed to get myself a deal with the media giant Clear Channel, and they're like, Michelle, we want to support you. And I've had this amazing billboard campaign on the Hammersmith flyover in 21 towns and cities up and down the country, and I never would have thought that that would have been my journey. So thank you for bringing me to that.
I think that needs a round of applause. Thank you, Michelle. And I know there's also books for sale out in the foyer I've been asked to mention as well, so please that. Right, who's going to hit us with a question? Come on, guys and girls, there must be a question here. Britt, we've got one over here.
Hi, this is maybe quite a practical question. Sorry, Viola, by the way. I quite often come to things like this, and I like meet loads of amazing women that I know I want to, or people that I want to learn from, and I want to like build a relationship. And I quite often like reach out in a first email afterwards, or like have a conversation. And then what I really struggle to do afterwards is like convert, makes it sound very transactional, but make it into something kind of a longer term relationship, something that's actually long lasting. Like, do you have any, I guess, advice for how you convert those like initial conversations that you have at a forum like this into a long lasting relationship, mentorship relationship?
That is a brilliant question. I love that question. Who's going to go first?
I'm happy to go. It's a great question, and it's not, there's no, at least for me, it's not like there's one answer to this. But for me, what I have done and what has worked for me, and it won't happen with everybody, right? It's like, okay, you talk to somebody, you have a great conversation, you reach out to them, and it turns out that that vibe just isn't there. And sometimes it's not there, and then let it go. Don't like force it. It's awkward for everybody. But sometimes it does, or you have, and for me, it's always, what is our commonality? What is that thing we have in common? And so I do the first one, and you get a response, because everyone's very polite, and we've just told you to do this. So you'll get a response to the first one. For me, it's then, what is that thing that we're both interested about? And sometimes I'll share an article that is about that thing, or sometimes it's an invite to something. But it's something that's saying, I heard you, I know you're interested in this, so am I. So I'm not just saying, let's have a coffee for the sake of having coffee. I know you're busy, but I'm saying we will both get value from this thing. And sometimes the thing is a link to something, right? But for me, that it starts to build a more authentic relationship. And I speak at lots of schools and universities, and I always tell them, add me on LinkedIn. And they do, and then they ask like 100 questions, and I respond to as many as I can. Some of them I've built a long-term relationship with because we found that thing. So I think it's work hard for the people you care about to find the commonality.
Yeah, brilliant. Anything Nicole and Shetty like to
I would just say that sort of added to that as well is the listening skills. So you were saying, I heard you, and you listening is really important to find that connection and that commonality, and remembering that almost, because there'll be times where something reminds you and you think, oh, that reminds me of that person. And actually networking and building relationships it takes time. It's not something that just happens. So yeah, those listening skills I've definitely felt have been really important, because I've recognised that they've helped me not just build relationships but maintain them as well.
And I would just say, Viola, just to release yourself from the attachment to any outcome, right? So just when you've got that voice that's kind of doubting whether or not you should do it, that voice is actually telling you to do it. So just do it and then just see what happens, right? And so you're continuing to cultivate relationships, and the ones that are the right ones will come back to you and they'll flourish and they'll develop. So just go for it.
And again, one other thing that I would add is that one of my favourite things in life is connecting people. So when you go to these events and you meet people, again, if you take those listening skills, it is the best feeling in the world when then a couple of months down the line you're talking to someone else and they say, I need a really good sports management consultant, for example. Me and Viola were chatting at lunchtime. Then you can go, well, here you go, let me put you guys together. And that helps cement up those relationships, but it also forces you to listen that little bit deeper, to know how you can connect with each other. And then, of course, when you need the help, when you need somebody to help you, it's a much easier ask to say, actually, would you mind helping me with this? They'd probably help you anyway, but I just think it's a really nice thing to do. So, yeah, brilliant question. Thank you. Any other questions? Have you got one? Yeah. Let's wait for the microphone because it helps with the recording.
Hi, I'm Katja from City Football Group. So, first of all, great panel and great discussion. I think my question is, we've been talking about relationships, we talk about socializing, reaching out, listening, and so on. But what in particular would, in this case for you, Michelle, if you don't mind, what would you advise, for example, for me to do in case if you feel someone who's an introvert has a lot of talent, but they're not going to be the person who's going to reach out. They're not going to be the person who's going to go mentoring anyone. They're not going to be those kind of person who will, share their skills and knowledge with others. But then there's so much potential in there. And what would be your advice to empower them to take that leap and actually be a mentor, be that kind of personality who's able to share that knowledge and advice and skills and experience?
Yeah, I mean, it might not be for everybody, right? So, and everyone can do it in their own way. So introverts, people, we all have parts of our personality that are more introverted and extroverted than others. And, I learn a lot from introverts. Oh my gosh, they teach me so much about myself. And there's a part of me that's more extrovert than introvert. And so I think it's just them going along the journey and doing the learning through kind of reading, through going on really great master classes. I sound like I am promoting The Guardian, but I'm not, I am actually. The Guardian run, there is a masterclass out there for anything and everything that you want to learn in life, right? And I've been using the Guardian masterclasses for a long time now because as a freelancer, I don't have a professional development budget unless I pay myself to do that. So there are some great resources out there. LinkedIn Learning is another great resource, and they have so much for introverts now. And it's just exploded in the last few years. So I would encourage that person to go on that journey and to do the learning around that. And then through small, mini, incremental actions, because our confidence comes from still feeling the fear of reaching out and doing the work that we're asking you to do, but doing it anyway, right? And so we all have fears and we all lack confidence in all kinds of ways, but if we can find, when our self-awareness kicks in and we can just continue to just do those small actions and make it as easy for ourselves as possible, that's where your confidence will grow, and then hopefully that's where they'll start to tap some of their potential around this, and then they'll find the way in which they can be a mentor that's comfortable for them.
Brilliant, great question, thank you. Another question here.
My name is Erika. I've got actually 3 questions for each one of you. I'll start with you, Michelle. I'll make this really, really quick. Michelle, you spoke something about you had like some learnings from some of your failures. I'd love to hear a bit more about what would be the takeaways from your failures that you could share with us. Nicole, I would love to know, how do you co-own a football club? And
That might take a masterclass in itself.
That's a masterclass.
And Preeti, do you now know what you're doing as a CEO?
Really easy, no.
So Preeti want to know. Michelle, should we come to you and then we'll go.
Great questions, Enrique. You know, look, I had to do on this radio yesterday, they called me up and said, Michelle, we want you to do a Wednesday wisdom. I'm like, what? They said, we want you to share 60 seconds of wisdom for the listeners on the BBC Radio London to do with like really inspiring people and everything. And I was like, okay. And I came up with setbacks, you know, and I think they wanted something really inspiring for me. But I dropped my voice and I made myself sound really like intelligent. And I basically talked about the fact that when we deeply understand that when we experience any kind of setback or failure, sometimes there's a danger that we define ourselves by that failure and that setback, and we have that voice that says, you're not good enough, see, now you haven't got it right, you've made another mistake. We have that voice in our head. And then that defines how we experience ourselves in the world for the future. But if we deeply understand and we really understand the power of our mindset, and that actually, in that moment, that setback is trying to teach us a lesson. And it's really hard, right? Because we can just be in the mire. Why has this happened to me? This isn't fair. You know, this is awful. But if we can understand that it's being sent to us for a lesson, there's a lesson there. And if we ask ourselves the empowering question around what is this trying to teach me, rather than why me, worries me, even what should I do now? What is the lesson in the here and now of this moment? And if you can get grounded enough in that, then that setback actually becomes this lesson that transforms you so that your future success is more guaranteed. And so you learn from the evidence of your failures that creates your future success. So that's what I would say about that.
And we've literally probably got about 30 seconds left. So Nicole, how do you run a football club?
Very good question. I definitely do a lot of that in terms of trying to learn, and you have to adapt and I would say nurture. So my vision, my goal is that the football club can run itself without me. It's there for, you know, years beyond I'm around. So I have to learn and nurture others to be able to take that on. And I keep that goal and vision in my head every day and try and remind myself that of every day.
Brilliant. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we need to give these ladies an amazing round of applause. The final thing to say is if anyone is interested in finding out about the new Women in Football mentoring programme, Women in Football have made a commitment to set up a formal programme. At the moment, we're just capturing names and email addresses of who'd be interested. So there's a web to go to, www.goal17.global/WIF. But anyone that wants that, come to me after and we'll make sure to do that. But thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to these amazing ladies.